So I think we had put in the topic. We're going to cover this topic around office space. And we were initially going to cover a different topic around conflict resolution, but which is a pretty meaty topic as well. But the notion of office space we thought would be interesting because there's a lot of literature out there now just talking about the surprise for most organizations, how productive working from home has been, right? So I think people were expecting it to not work as well, be more challenging, but I think across the board, a lot of literature being out there, blog posts, tweets, articles, just talking about the surprise benefits of working from home. To the point where you have to ask yourself the question, were we crazy actually even having an office? Is it the remnants of the industrial age where you have a factory and you have a supervisor and the need to like clock in? And did office really represent that discipline notion of, having a supervisor, having authority, checking you in, being able to supervise and make sure you're working, not taking a 2-hour lunch, going and being productive as opposed to you're able to do whatever you want since you cannot see what people are doing for the most part working from home. Now there's software that's come up, Zoom included, that's able to tell if you're actually doing something else or not. But putting all that aside, I think generally speaking, the benefits of working at home have come up to such a large degree that what working from home used to be a perk that some companies would give employees, and now seems to have reversed the other way, where there's a bigger question of, should we ever even go to the office? Is the office needed? From the corporate side, the notion of we can reduce costs by reducing the cost of having this expensive real estate. So that's the topic we wanted to go into and cover. I'll give you a quick sense by sharing our screen, what we're looking to present. It's around 16 slides, and we'll take you through kind of this notion. And what's interesting is we've done a lot of work with some of the best researchers out in the world. And when you hear a good piece of insight, whether it's from a researcher or anybody, it's not complicated. The best insights are so simple, they're almost obvious, as in it was in front of our eyes. But until you heard it, it wasn't so obvious.
It's in hindsight, it sounds real, duh, right?
But once you hear it, you almost can't unsee it. Yeah. So my prediction of maybe the topic we're going to cover might be something like that. We're going to take you through a unique perspective of what is actually missing from the notion of leadership, from the notion of organizations by not having office space, by not going into work. And putting across what you might hear more of the softer stuff of trust and creativity and brainstorming and those things, yes, but there's something more basic that we found that's missing. And we overlooked it ourselves as a company and realized it very recently as well. So this is like as new and cutting edge for us, and we wanted to share that with everyone. But maybe before kind of going into this, could everybody who's on the call right now in the class do this? 30 seconds, if you open up the chat. So at the bottom of the screen, there should be a chat feature. Just 30 seconds, type in what has been the best part of working from home. So just 30 seconds and just put it to everyone so you can see. So I'm looking at some of this. So increase focused on
more time with your family, no commute, more relaxed.
Work-life balance.
COA. Thank you, Phil. Not wasting time in the car.
Flexibility.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, lots of laundry and domestic work accomplished. I love that.
Getting 4 hours a day back. Commuting tends to be a big one.
No public restrooms.
No public restrooms.
That's a good one.
No traveling.
2-hour daily commute. Yeah. No eating out. Yeah. More home cooked meals.
Less stress.
Comfortable in your clothes. That's a good one.
I've heard dry cleaning bills have pretty much become non-existent.
Yeah, the poor dry cleaners though, huh? Saving money,
being able to sleep in.
Healthier and able to exercise. More focus, right? Ability to focus. Okay. Being able to sleep in because you don't have to commute. That extra sleep time.
So
I enjoyed spring this year because I saw it. Yeah.
Enjoy what?
Spring. It's Christy saw the spring. Usually you just work, work, work.
So
Okay.
going into this really quick. Why office space matters. Now, these are two extreme diagrams. I think there are still some offices that kind of look like the office on the right, where it literally is like, a factory kind of cube farm. There's the flip side. I don't know if you are working like this, pajamas on, leg up and just as relaxed as you can be. There's that extreme, but really going to kind of what matters about office space. So this was kind of quick search on the internet, what we saw, right? All the benefits from working from home. Some of these you covered. Flexible schedule, custom environments, cozy clothes. It's easier to make calls. You can knock off weekend to-dos. No office distractions, zero commuting. Commuting came up as one of the top things. Saving money. I think that not only ranges from commuting, but I think we tend to eat out more when we go to the office, but we also have more dry cleaning and sort of like clothes we have to even get.
Yeah.
Forget crowds and traffic, more time with loved ones. Mm-hmm. So, I think what's been interesting is this, where working from home sort of was like I said, a privileged perk. A lot of times you heard a lot of companies and leaders talk about just make a rule that you can't work from home on Fridays and Mondays because people will take advantage of it, call out sick, or use it as a long weekend, act like they're working. There's the notion of discipline and being able to keep the rigor and discipline for your staff was available and easy to do with offices. And that number one role or the number one individual who did that was what they called mid-level managers. Well, there's been some interesting literature that the surprise for CEOs and top leadership in organizations has been that the productivity of the junior folk was surprisingly high without having mid-level managers hovering over them. Right. So, and those to be most cautious and beware of job loss could be the massive cuts that's going to come at the mid-levels where maybe they weren't as useful. And there's quite a bit of literature now coming out about that. And once again, going into this notion of like, given all these benefits, why do we even bother having an office? Like the trade-offs seem to heavily favor not having an office, leverage the existing space of employees, saves company money. Typically after headcount, the second most expensive cost to organizations is the office space. So unless you're actually a factory or a place like a retail where you need the store, literally cut it out seems to be almost a resonating theme and not being able to articulate what the benefits of that office was. Should I have them put that in real quick?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
So maybe just a slightly separate exercise, go back into the chat. What do you miss about the office? So not having been in the office for many of us, 3 months, 4 months, I know some of you are still in the office. What do you miss? Not one thing, okay? My colleagues.
Connections and relationships, nothing, nothing, wow.
Spontaneous discussions is a big one we've heard a lot.
Socialization, missing your team, ad hoc conversations, networking, taking walks with friends, just human interaction. Yeah, potlucks, just stop by to say hi.
I think one of the things that Tony Shea from Zappos always talks a lot about is serendipitous collisions. The conversations that occur literally bumping into someone while grabbing coffee or in the bathroom or just anywhere, and how much occurs through that communication. Whiteboarding, right? So I like that. I'm a huge whiteboard fan, so I love Moeed Ahmed, right? Whiteboarding.
Free donuts from the boss.
Free donuts from the boss.
I love it.
Always better than
free coffee.
Free coffee. Yeah.
Yeah.
Collaboration.
Yeah.
So all very, very good things. And yet a little different than the direction we're going to take this. When we think about space, and we covered this in our Leadership in Practice class number 7, the notion of what changed from the 20th century to the 21st century is the notion of working harder versus working smarter. And you've heard this term a lot before, where you want employees, you want leaders, you want people who do both, right? They both put that hard effort and hard work in, but you want them to also be smart about it, because a lot of hard work, not working smart, doesn't really amount to a lot in terms of results and outcome. But working really smart, but barely putting the time in doesn't really do much either. But in general, in the 21st century, organizations will favor the brain power over the sheer manpower. Now, that change has been slow to come, but of course it's coming even faster now. Working from home, the one thing that has come out, and in fact, when we looked at the On My Minds, even our employees and other organizations we talk to, the greatest anxiety and stress from employees is that because no one is seeing your FaceTime, being in the office, the only way to show you added value to an organization is how productive you were in the quality of the work you produced. And that is something that has created a lot of stress, to be honest, for a lot of employees, but it is something that also is moving the shift of 20th century manpower, moving towards this notion of brain power working smarter. And there's a big difference in manpower versus brain power. And when Megan was not co-CEO, and so I was her boss then, now we're kind of co-bosses.
That's right.
And she came to me talking first about wanting to work part-time. And I was like, oh my God, in my mind, it was 2 hours a day, 3 days a week.
Okay.
Right? No, it's just
Where's
kind of
where's he going with this? This is after I had my second son.
But she came and she asked, we had a walk around the block and we're both nervous. So not walk, shoulder to shoulder walking. So not looking at each other in the face.
He was a few months old. And I was like,
and she brings up this dreaded thing and I'm thinking, oh God, I'll see you 2 hours a day for 3 days. And then she asked if she can take Fridays off. And I was like, oh, that's it? And she was like, I just want Fridays off. So I have to go to doctor's appointments and catch up. And I was like, oh my God, that's so nothing. Yes, without question. And I was like, I don't even care. We'll pay you 100% salary for 80% work. Doesn't matter. And we talked more and I explained to Megan that I would rather have 2 hours of your good judgment than 40 to 60 hours of bad judgment from most people around me. The value of your brain power and judgment being your ability to sense make and then make the right decision, the right call, that was so invaluable as an organization. 2 hours of that a week was worth more than 40 to 60 hours of bad judgment from other people. And so this value of brain power kind of comes up quite a bit. But when you think of brain power, we like this image here, right? There are two forks in the road people can take. Minimum effort, and effort can sometimes feel like just the physical toil of work, versus more effort, like extraordinary effort. And when you think about what's needed in the 21st century, that notion of when someone gives it their discretionary effort, when someone does any job giving it their all, the notion of I love really geeky employees, geeky in any topic, where they do it like a hobby, like a passion. It's like reading a book and you can't drop it because they're so into it. They'll wake up in the middle of the night and scribble notes because they have a thought or an idea of trying it a different way. They'll wake up with a new, fresh perspective. But this notion of when someone is passionate and motivated and giving it that all, the outcome is night and day versus the person who's putting minimum effort. The minimum effort is the person who asks you the question, so what's your expectation of me? How many, it's almost like you want every barrier, every way. And we talk about this notion of renters versus owners. Renters take this fork on the left, exit one, right? What's the bare minimum I have to do to keep this job? And what's the bare minimum I need to do to get promoted? Can you just map out for me sort of these bare minimum clauses? And what are the rules here? Owners think about the idea of owning it, really doing the right things to make it better. Do your best and whatever that might be. And I think there is that difference of the two. So several years back, there's an organization within the Air Force we did a lot of work with called PACE. It's one of the schoolhouses in the Air Force. And they gave us 2 slides that we liked, so I'll just share it with you. One was talking about the industrial age form of leadership. Called mandated leadership. It's what they call the leader-follower model. It's very much like you have one person in charge, a supervisor. It's kind of like a very king, model where you have everyone follows a king and everyone else is a subordinate. And they said this is kind of some of the themes that come out. You will do what I tell you because I outrank you. Mandate leadership, while sometimes required, is the weakest form of leadership. It focuses on the process rather than the people. It's easier to apply and does require less time, does not require and understanding of those who you're leading, right? The idea that we're all just a number, you can replace us like widgets. And it can often result in marginal solutions, disinterested members, lack of commitment to the end state, and near zero personal responsibility to those not in charge. This form of leadership, and once again, when the world was a lot less complex and what you were trying to accomplish was pretty unambiguous and we needed everyone to produce this many cars or this many widgets, you just needed people to act. In many ways, they always said in the industrial age, people were a piece of the machine, right? A replaceable widget, but you all needed everyone doing the same thing and just do it in quantity and just in volume.
Yeah, there's
right?
a lot of clarity of what to do, right? That model works really well. There are places for this, right? That it works very well, maybe 5% of the time.
And in fact, the US military is known to have perfected this model better than anybody in the world. And it got adopted. And if you look back in history, somewhere in the 1900s, maybe 50s or 70s, almost every organization at a global level adopted the forms of management and leadership from the US military. They looked at them, and at that point, they probably had somewhere in the 20 million plus people in the military in the US, where it's now like roughly like 10% of that. They basically said they can mobilize that many people under stress to thread the needle and perform heroics at crazy levels. It was the strongest military force. We have to learn how management and leadership works from there. And it was an incredibly effective model for discipline. But they said that over the years, a model for discipline is a very poor model for innovation. The idea of creating something that did not exist, the idea of innovation is a completely different model. And a model that worked for discipline and rigor and marching kind of like an elephant, slow and steady but powerfully, is the exact thing that does not create innovation, which works much more like a cheetah. It's fast, it's agile, it can shift and move based on what you see in terms of data coming at you. So this notion of organic leadership, which is the idea that leader in training, every single person in the organization is currently a leader or a leader in training. Everyone is moving up in their skills of leadership. So the notion here is that you are part of the solution and we are in this together. It is more difficult to apply and requires planning. It requires an understanding of those you lead, right? No more does it work that it'd be almost like those families where you have there's some crazy families that have 26 kids. And because of the fact that, or 20 kids, they use just an alphabetical naming because you might as well call them A, B, C, D. In fact, when I go to DC, I love their streets are numbered and lettered.
Yeah.
So it's like the corner F and 16 versus it just seems to be a very easy way to remember naming versus the idea that you have to understand who these people are, their own individual strengths, their own individual development areas, what's happening at home, the whole person, because that does matter. It requires an environment of trust, teamwork, and a shared sense of responsibility for the outcome, often results in superior solutions, greater buy-in, individual commitment to the end state. This idea of the long-term matters a lot, and a high degree of personal responsibility across the entire team. This notion that we say, you start to think like an owner versus on the other side, you are a renter and you have an army or team of renters versus you're now an owner yourself. So we use the term co-owner and you're managing a team of co-owners of the enterprise and you're taking care of it together. So I want to bring you back to a topic that we talked about before, and we had made this around a decade ago, just spending time with the best and then in the practice of decision-making and understanding how the process of good judgment and decision-making occurs. The most common three things people talk about are these three things. The idea that great judgment, great decision-making always starts with putting your independent, thinking or your, what they call system one, your intuition, your gut reaction, put it on the table because that's worth something. But when you put your intuitive system one fast thinking on the table, others around you in the team will react to it. That's usually called feedback. Sometimes it's called criticism. Sometimes it's called the messy discourse that occurs of just criticizing, rubbing, and figuring out, right? Your thought versus my thought and how it clashes. And then it goes back and forth from different people. And eventually you get to a place of making a good decision. But we found over the years, this is actually not the basis or the foundation of decision making. This was level 3, 4, and 5. And by the way, level 3, 4, and 5 is the number one asset that every organization is trying to cultivate out of their organization, the brain power, the working smarter. I want smarter, owners owning these ideas and producing whatever greatness they might. What we did and the time we spent was we found there was a foundational two things that if you didn't have those two things, number 3, 4, 5 never showed up properly. And in fact, it fell apart so much that you had bad judgment, bad decision making. And in fact, one of the biggest things that occurred is right here on level 3, you have what they call organizational silence. It is probably the single biggest virus or disease that swept through organizations. People are afraid to speak up, so they don't. It is literally like going to a poker game, sitting at the table, and every single person is bluffing. Every person has those sunglasses where it's like a picture, like a reflector of your eyes, so they can't see your reactions at all. You've got headphones on, so they can't, you're literally tuning everyone out and trying to act as unreactive as possible to not show any hand of if you're happy or not, if you agree or disagree, and just take a middle of the road point of view until you're sure what the boss wants. Then you're like, oh, the boss thinks it's funny. We all laugh. The boss thinks it's a good idea. We all nod our heads, and so forth. We found there were 2 levels that came before this. Level 1 is what we call gas. Gas is a fancy way to say give a shit. Level 2 is a term Megan coined, I think in 2014, called no LHF, lying, hiding, or faking. Most times in life, what is occurring through our head is what I think one of the speakers last week, Sri Kumar, called mental chatter. We don't really dare share our real mental chatter, so we will lie about it, or we will hide it, or we will fake. The classic thing is you're in a meeting, and the boss may ask, so is it really clear to everyone? And everyone's like, crystal clear.
Crystal clear.
Wow,
Got
couldn't
it.
be clear. Got it. Thank you for that clarification. And you're thinking in your head, I have no idea what the last 15 minutes was what about. God, I hope they're not going to call on me to go follow up and do something. Number 2, no LHF is probably the area as a company we focused on the most. And these 2 things, by the way, if you don't have level 1 and level 2 as a solid ritual, what we call on-the-job training occurring every week as an individual, as a team, as an enterprise, you'll see 3, 4, 5. Doesn't even matter how many classes or techniques you learn of how to do 3, 4, 5 better, it will not show up consistently, and especially when you need it. But here is the interesting part now when it comes down to office space.
In this on level 2, if you've come to some of our other leadership and practice classes, LIP number 5, we talked a lot about this work from home protocol, what we've set up in our organization, which a lot of it we already had before COVID hit, but with working from home, we sort of doubled down on it, which is a lot of transparency being created both ways in the company, up and down, including daily summaries of what people are doing every day on my mind. So there's actually 3 times a week while we're working from home, just to get a sense of where people's emotions are. We have staff meetings with feedback where we create transparency using an anonymous app. So there's a lot of no LHF, ways to cut that out, to reduce the organizational silence, to get more voice of what's happening in the company. That's all level 2.
Right. So there's an app that I think a lot of you have asked for it called OMM, On My Mind. So I think as of this week, it should be available. Anybody here using Perks of Work should be able to use the labs version of On My Mind, which I think the team may have added or released. So you can download it, use it. And basically it's a form of emotional journaling. Over time, you build a level of awareness on kind of the mental chatter occurring in your head, and you have the ability to share it with someone you trust. And no one will see it except the person you choose. We've done a lot of work in level 2, and when we went to work from home, we cover this in detail because we found this to be the single most important thing. But even as next jump, we completely forgot level 1 because we took it for granted. When you have a physical office, level 1 existed in the office. But when everyone worked from home, it disappeared, and that was in our blind spot. Now, I'm going to cover this in a little bit more detail, but I want you to think about level 1 and level 2, that it goes both ways. It's not a one-way street, it's two ways. And usually you want the leaders to go first. The leaders have to model what no LHFing looks like. Another word for it is being authentic, right?
Yeah.
Like being able, when you talk to someone and you ask them a important question and the response comes really slow, carefully selected words. That's what we call LHFing, right? Because the speed that you can speak is at around 300 words a minute. But the speed our brain is processing words is 10 times that number, 3,000 to 4,000 words a minute.
So think about how much you're filtering, right? So the slower you go, the more you choose your words.
And I think we've gotten so accustomed to kind of the fake rhetoric, the slogans of what the manager's supposed to say, that it's a breath of fresh air when you hear truth, authenticity. And so, but to practice that, by the way, level 2, we cover this in several classes, can be very dangerous, which is why you need safer circles before you go to more dangerous circles on it. But this is kind of where we spent most of NextJump's culture on. But level 1, we did a lot of, except it was so baked into the office, we forgot that without the office, it doesn't exist.
What we didn't forget is that, social interaction is missing, the notion of collaboration and teaming and creativity, we've without question felt. It's not that, that kind of obvious piece of connection and working together, but I think there's something else, right? That's what we're going to share, right? That has been missing.
So this is a diagram I loved. This is a classic example of getting the job done versus doing the job right? And this is what shows up in most places when you don't have gas, right? This notion of unlocking discretionary effort.
Yes, no matter how good your strategy is, if your people don't have gas, like they don't give a shit, it won't work. I mean, I think of gas, I think of it as care, right? Care both ways. Care from the leadership for its people and care for the people, we sometimes we'll call them the mob, even though that's not a good term, but that the mob loves the organization, cares for the organization. You need that both ways.
I mean mob in the most endearing way.
We mean it in the most endearing way.
But I think this idea that it starts actually from the leadership first. Yeah. You have to show care. And right now, the only form of care that's showing up is often in what we call that level 2, in talking.
Conversations.
And there's a part where, I don't want to be so material and whatnot, but so we go into well, isn't talking just kind of enough? I call them, I check in, how are they doing? I give them some praise, I give them my time, right? And what we're saying is it's not enough, because when you had a physical office, there was more than that. And this is the part that is in the blind spot of what we're missing. Just quick thing, by the way, on level 1, because level 1 is getting into stuff, right? Stuff matters, even though it doesn't matter sometimes as much as good conversation, good presence, but it is a foundation and we overlook it. But just a quick warning is that if you do level 1 alone, it will lead to what we call entitlement, perks inflation. You ever have hey, you know what, Fridays, pizza Fridays. Next thing you know, you hear complaints of could we get something else? Well, and then once you try to cut out that perk, people are I like the company because I got free lunch on Fridays, but now I don't. So I feel like I'm getting paid less. It's so you have to watch out. Perks inflation, entitlement shows up very fast, but also things fizzle out very fast. Meaning when you do level 1 alone, you will see that it's not going to be enough. You need level 2, and then you need the whole 3, 4, 5 to show up as well. So just kind of some quick warning there. So the best analogy to the office we can think of was this: hosting a dinner party. If I host a dinner party at my house, it's not that different than being a leader and hosting the employees in my office. You will hear often that if you want to know what the culture of a team or a company is like, just go visit them in their space. The minute you walk in, you can feel it right away. You can feel an organization that is high performing versus an organization that's low performing. You can feel an organization that is authentic versus one that's not. You can feel an organization that cares and takes care of its people versus one that doesn't. It's crazy how fast you can feel this when you just go visit their space. No different than if you ever go to someone's house, which we have all at some point. The minute you walk in, you can feel almost instantaneously within seconds and minutes if this is a loving, caring, happy family or not, right? Whether it's, and it's interesting kind of what signals we pick up to understand that. I think about a dinner party. When you come to the dinner party, you know, the thing that really matters are all the little things that we do to show hosting, to show care for our guests. It might be, you know, where you hang your coat. It might be like little like name tags on the glasses, the extra chips and extra dips, and even like vegetarian selections versus, you know, meat selections versus like fancier cheese and, you know, curated meats. Like, I mean, just every detail matters.
It's making me hungry.
The
and I
quality of
want
the
to go to
toothpick
party.
that you put in, right?
Mhm.
Maybe you even have a little take-home gift afterwards,
Oh,
right?
wow.
I mean, just a little snack in case later, like a little candy bag or something. I mean, if you go nuts,
Yeah.
they notice these details.
The music, the
Right.
temperature in
Temperature,
the room,
music,
all of it.
things that
Yeah.
like those details matter. The stuff that you don't think about.
Yeah.
But imagine if we did it this way. I'm going to host a virtual dinner party, right? You're going to get my personality, my charm,
Yeah.
my great
I'm
conversation.
going to bring it myself.
My
I'm gonna
fully
bring
engaged self. I'm going to talk to you about how great you are, show gratitude and show like my appreciation for you. Now you get your own food, you get your own drinks, right? We'll do it over Zoom. I'm going to host a virtual dinner party. Now, a lot of us, I think, have had to do this, but it's different. Something's missing. The idea of what the host did versus did not do, you might not even be able to articulate what it is because it feels so petty.
Mhm.
You know what? Like, I didn't get that little candy gift bag. You know, when I go to the house, God, like they put this amazing spread of appetizers, like which I clearly didn't get because I had to do my own, right? Something's missing. And does that matter? Like, does that matter? And when you look at all the different ways that someone shows care, it is almost never in the big things they do. It's the tiny dozens, hundreds of little things they do that makes the biggest difference. And we have this statement on the walls of our office to do the little things that allow others to do the great things they're meant to do. You know, when someone notices that little thing, and then they don't just do it like verbally, but they actually go through, take the time, and you'll see that like oftentimes people mistake, you know, money. I need to spend money, but
Yeah.
no, little things. Often there's an inverse correlation between money and care.
Mhm.
The less money you have, it's actually often easier to show care to someone than when you have more money.
Mhm.
The expectation usually is you come in when you go to a billionaire's house, you're like not expecting little bags of candy. You're expecting to walk away with something like a flat screen or maybe an iPad or something substantial.
What
Right.
billionaires? What billionaire party do you
Just
go
saying.
to?
I'm just saying, there are,
When do
I
you
mean,
get a flat screen
like,
walking away from a
but-
party?
if you ever go to TED Talks in itself, or we go to these CEO conferences, the gift bag you get,
Yes.
out of control. I mean, the gift bag itself, the sum
like an
of what's
iPad
in
in it,
there
yeah.
is somewhere between $5,000-$10,000 worth of just gifts. Just like, it's not your tchotchke like stress ball, right? And like, you know, some rubber band you put around your wrist. I mean, you're talking like hardcore like stuff. That's what you expect when you go to some place that has a lot of money.
Yes,
But
it's a good example.
this idea that it's easier to show care often with less, but what really matters is noticing and actioning on those little things. We share this in one of the earlier LIP classes. When you think about this, what we call PEMS, a human being works where when you're physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually full, your cup is full, kindness shows up. When any of the parts are missing, niceness or inauthentic kindness shows up. Well, what happens working from home, the physical side is the piece that's missing. The physical side, by not having a physical space to host your employees, there's something missing. And we were talking about this,
Yeah.
this notion of culture and what is culture. You know, culture is almost like an automatic machine. It's what they call the norm. The new normal is the new culture, right? So when you have an upgraded culture, they say it's a new normal.
Mhm.
When you have the old culture, it's just the norms of the organization. And what happens with the norms is this. whether we as CEOs are having a good day or a bad day,
whether we're here or not,
it just runs.
Traveling, it's
right?
just happening.
Like
right?
we have snack bins in our office, right? Healthy snacks for employees. You know, we have, you know, healthy drinks. Can you imagine where if those snacks and drinks showed up or did not based on our mood and temperament? Like the days that we're stressed,
having a bad
no
day,
snacks.
no snacks for you. You know, angry, didn't sleep well last night. No healthy drinks, no water. Bring your own stuff, right? That's what it would feel like.
And what's interesting is this: I don't believe there's a leader today that is not stressed. That is not stressed about a drop in revenues, worried about layoffs or furloughs. That is not worried about illness on the personal, family level, the safety of the office. They are so depleted and worried about everything. And this is the window where they also need to get the discretionary effort of their people, right? And in many ways, it's kind of like a mercenary relationship. You have a job that should be enough, so bring me your discretionary effort. That won't last and go very far. There's a part of kindness can beget more kindness. Showing care first can drive more care. And so the question is, how do you bring care on something that became automatic in a physical space that is now missing? So there are different ways, and this is a slide that goes back to 2017. We talked about recognition, community, touch the mission, but the very top of it, we got this actually talking to some people in the Navy. And these are people who ran these huge aircraft carriers, 5,000 people like carriers, saying food is the fastest way to impact morale. You can feel it almost instantly. If the food is good, morale is high. If the food is bad, morale goes down. But food is also a huge responsibility. Watching expiration dates, cleanliness. But you know, in today's 21st century, food isn't just food anymore. Yummy food, you know, like I know someone missed the donuts. But imagine if I told you there's delicious, healthy donuts. You can eat 5 and have the same impact as 1. Wow. You found what?
I don't know if there's a healthy donut out
I
there.
know
Is
that's
there?
possible.
But
I'm
that's
sure
very
someone
cool.
knows about this.
If you know what
if you
that
do know,
is,
put it in the chat. Put it in the
if you
chat.
know.
But this idea of, you know, healthy food costs more. Healthy, delicious food takes a lot of knowledge to find. Because you want to find healthy food that tastes like cardboard, a lot of that exists.
That's why the thought matters.
Yeah, just chew on bark, right? Eat some just grass, no dressing. But like healthy, delicious food,
hard.
Very difficult to find. And being able to demonstrate that is one of the first things. Then they talked about in the Navy that other things people do is that, you know, they remember the deployment and everything, but they remember the team, camaraderie, and then touching the mission often. But this was a 2017 slide. I'm gonna focus your attention more at the very top. This notion of it doesn't have to be food, but thinking about an office versus working from home. This is the last slide we have. Little details to show gas towards employees. You know, when you walk into a reception area and there's like, whether it's mints, or there's drinks, or there's some welcoming element, and those things that you could have done and you just take it for granted, you forgot about it. Yet the person who comes in notices that. Well, when you don't have that, how does a client, a visitor to your organization notice your care? How does an employee notice your care? So we're chartering unchartered space. How do you think of level 1?
Like physical perks.
As a leader, right? Demonstrating gas, that you give a shit about your people, right? But not in just lip service and words, but in some physical way when we are not physical anymore. In some little way that is not the, I'm gonna call you on Zoom or email you, like those things matter, but that's not what's missing. And so we put a couple notes here to help. This inverse correlation between care and money, for those of you who think, well, we don't have the money, it's not the right way to look at it. Like, I'll give you an example. You know, we spent a lot of time coaching different leaders in different organizations, and this, you know, one just amazing leader from the Navy sent us this military mask, right? Like,
well, yeah, masks for COVID, but it's like camouflage.
It's
you
cool.
know, military version of it is very cool.
It probably costs like $1.99, right? Or maybe it's
$4.99. It looks very nice.
It looks nice. I wear it every day, right? That kind of matters. It matters because, like, I wasn't expecting a new car or anything, but like just that little touch that person took the time to send it to us.
Also, Josh is on here too.
Yeah.
Look, there's something really cool Josh does in the Air Force. He sends, he's done this before, I don't know how often, but will send a letter for one of his people on his team or somebody who's done something excellent or just exemplified whatever he's looking to kind of model, and will send their parents a letter about them, like thanking them for basically bringing this human being to the planet. Like, is that
and the great work that their son or daughter is doing for the organization?
That's physical. And see, it is physical. You're getting, it's like clearly somebody took the time to write it out. It's a physical note.
Which is different than,
it's different than
the
a conversation.
email I'm going to send, or I'm going to make a blog post about it.
It's different.
Right?
There's something very different about it. It's so little and subtle, but like that matters. That physical, like touching it, getting something in the mail,
Josh is on this call, so he worked at Eielson Air Force Base, and so not to embarrass him too much here, but probably one of the best things he ever did for us was I didn't even realize the North Pole technically is in Alaska, which I had no idea. I really thought that was a made-up place, but it's called the North Pole. And there's a service where literally from the North Pole, they mail out a thing from Santa, right? So, Megan has 2 boys, and I have a son and a daughter. And Josh, like, this past Christmas, right, did this where he had us write to him, what we want to say, and then sent each of our kids literally a letter from the North Pole.
But he hand wrote it.
Right. He hand wrote our note.
He hand wrote what we had said.
And literally, my son's 11 and, doesn't believe Santa exists. He got this. He's like, what the? He's like, how does he know about my sister and how I'm being mean to my friend and how I need to be good? And his mind was blown, and he's going to school showing his friends saying, look at this. The stamp came from the North Pole. Like, look at this letter.
Cool.
And like,
my 7-year-old, he's not very verbal. Like, his speech has always been an issue. He went like completely like, it's like he may as well have been speaking 5 different languages at once. It was like he became like a different child. And he said, I wish I could text Santa right now because this is sick. I want to tell him this. I want to text Santa. This is sick. I mean, you can't. How do you replicate that stuff?
And it's like,
to think of stuff like that for your
my kids
people.
went to school and they had a little bit of a challenge because they realized no other kid got this letter. And I had to I had to negotiate and explain how is it possible they were all bad kids?
No, so
possible,
but then when
right?
our kids realized they both got it, I had to do you have to treat them like adults. And then I said, look, we know someone who knows Santa, and we ask for a favor, but doesn't always happen. But we know someone who knows someone who knows Santa. So then it was kind of like
we're digressing.
Anyway, so
the point is,
it doesn't matter. But Josh, we love you. It was very cool.
That matters.
Physical perks.
That physical little thing matters.
That was what we had.
Wanted to open up for
questions, reactions,
thoughts. Reactions.
One of the things we're going to do, if you want to put in the chat, start thinking about what you want to ask or reactions.
Yeah, just go into the chat really quick. What's going through your head? What's going through your mind right now? You can just type it in.
Oh, Josh had to take a phone call. He missed us. It's crazy, huh?
I want to be Josh's friend. That's true too.
Yeah.
We know Josh. If you be our friend,
Josh is no longer in Alaska though, so.
Josh knows people in Alaska. We know Josh, so you can be our friend, and we can.
Are we making you blush, Josh? All right. Any other reactions?
Questions, challenges you're thinking, how to start.
One of the things we're gonna do, I don't know if any next jumpers are on, but we're thinking about sending really healthy snacks. There's companies out there that do this too, but just to kind of curate some healthy snacks. There's certain chips and bars are just crap, I think, but some of the bars are good, right? But there's a lot of really cool chips. Crunch is good for stress. There's nuts, healthy nuts. There's ways to curate healthy snacks. It's actually the place we started when it comes to food. Over a decade ago, we started with snacks. People love snacks.
Snacks is easier also because they're not perishable. Perishable has all kinds of challenges.
Yeah.
And so there's a company that we found that we use called Snack Nation. They have these $30 packages and $50 packages. So just a quick tip, the bars suck. Don't get the bars. Yeah. But the chips and the nuts are delicious. Yeah. But the chips and nuts selection is where I go. They have turmeric nuts, sriracha nuts, the Virginia peanuts.
Yeah.
To there's cauliflower chips, bean chips, like
Mhm.
healthy but delicious. Like
Mhm.
you would almost think, how could this be healthy? They're all healthy.
Yeah.
The bars, once again, don't get it. But the ability to then, you can give them a spreadsheet and they'll fire this off to every employee. So we've already begun the process. It can even ship it internationally. So our London employees in 10 days will see the first shipment. And then
Mhm.
US employees, we have a plan to send it to them as well. So for those of you on the call, you'll know it's coming.
Now, here's another
But-
thing we're thinking about. So we usually run a summer outing, where we fly everybody in with their family, and it's like a Saturday, and you're on water slides. We bring everybody to like a big park. Can't do that this year, right? But to actually create something virtual. So yes, that's not physical, but to do that virtually and having games and different things we can do, but to send something in advance. Maybe it is the summer outing t-shirt, maybe like something that they get in the mail. I'm sure there's much more creative things we could do, but we just started thinking about this, like what you could send in the mail, something small, that you're getting in the mail, but that's connected to the virtual game or the event that you're about to do, right? Yeah, so that's kind of some of the thoughts. Let's see, we're just looking at your
I love
chat.
some of this. Rosemary from Home Depot or Tina from C.
I think Rosemary from Home
Awesome.
Depot is the one who won.
Yeah, unmute yourself. Tell us share with the group what you did. It's pretty cool stuff.
So, hey, good morning, everyone. Here, I'll put my video on too. So I'm a district HR manager. So I have a group of stores that are all within driving distance, but all of the district personnel have been working from home and not going to stores. So I did letters to the assistant store managers, sent them to their homes. I have HR supervisors in each store, and I drove to their houses, and I had little jars of flowers, live flowers with a personal note, telling them how essential they were to me, that I just left on their doorstep. Something that's a personal touch, but there was contactless, right? But I've really been struggling, like, what do I do now? And they have tons of food in the store. They're all in the store. It's a little bit different. I'm the one that's not physically there, but they're all together. So they've got plenty of food, but the shirt idea is a great idea. We usually take all 150 supervisors out for a picnic every summer, and we can't do that this year, obviously.
Right.
And we've been kind of struggling, like, oh God, what are we going to do to demonstrate that they are still really essential and important to us? But I love the shirt idea. That might be the part of the way to go.
So here's what we're doing. So we're embarking. So we run a summer outing with all employees. You fly them from London, San Francisco, Boston, New York, all here. And so we're going to attempt to run our summer outing virtually on August 15th. And there's a couple of benefits about virtually. You can allow them to invite their parents. And so some parents are in India,
Or their
some are in
siblings,
China,
their
right?
siblings, their nieces and
So
nephews.
you can do something different. And so we're going to attempt this, which is, how do we send them like the meal? Whether it's like a steak or lobster, like actually you can pick your choice, but if you're vegetarian, we'll send it to them. And then we're looking to create, kind of like COA, a day of activities that have all different things and stuff. There's a box coming to you. So you'll be wearing that shirt that day. We're thinking of different competitions that may range from like the Kahoot we play,
Yeah.
all the way to, I kind of want to do a saltine eating
We usually do a
competition.
watermelon eating competition, but Charlie wants to turn it into a,
Like how many saltines can you eat, which is really hard, trying to even do more than 2 in a minute. So like, but the box will include a package of saltines. The idea of putting the effort in of the little details that can range in like glow sticks for the kids to, like just the elements so that we can dial in, and there's different almost booths occurring, but the booths are Zoom windows, right? You go in and we're challenging different, leaders within our leadership team to come with their booth, right?
Like we was thinking there could be like a cut your hair booth, like you could go and learn how to give a haircut or compete for who can give the best haircut, which I can't imagine.
Talent competition, family talent competition, right?
The best TikTok.
Right, and then like the winner could get something. I'm sure Home Depot has a lot of stuff you can give them, like a new door or
A new
plans for
door.
something. But like this idea of even creating that competitive camaraderie, but this idea of getting something that then helps you compete.
Yeah.
Right. However silly that might be, and the details and the touches will matter. And I think oftentimes what we
Yeah.
found, and it's fascinating because it brought us back to thinking about the early startup days.
Mhm.
We were losing money. We did not have much to do. And I remember this argument I had with someone, with a friend, saying, like, Charlie, like, why do you go on Sundays to Costco and you're buying like packets of flavor ices? These frozen like colored drinks are
It's
horrible
like
for you,
in
by the way,
1998.
right? And
yeah.
cases of soda, and you don't have the money, but you're spending Sunday evenings buying cases of this, bringing it to your basement office and stocking the fridge. And my response was, when everyone has lunch, they have to buy a beverage. Like and it's a lot cheaper when I buy it this way. And the thing and the reason I do is I want to show them I care. And this whole act of showing them that it's hot summer, we're doing local sales, the flavor ices are great, and the drinks are always there. And you can imagine when you hire mostly interns and young adults, I mean, the amount of beverages they would drink in a day is just unbelievable. I mean, probably 12 cans a day, kind of nonsense, but and they're like invincible bodies at that point. But like, I remember at the end of the summer when I had exit interviews, which, I kind of worked in HR, which is why it's like so formal. Exit interviews, a startup for the interns, but exit interviews about their summer and their experience across the board. The comment they made was just, you cared about us. And I was like, what do you mean? Number one, the drinks and the flavor ices. They would talk about that and this idea of something token. And so even I love the flowers, but there's something that also, if sometimes someone can hold on to it, like a tiny token thing, like t-shirts are great. We found so many organizations, the way that you upgrade, you get upgraded with a t-shirt. But take the time to make the shirt right.
What do you mean get upgraded by a t-shirt?
Like there's a bunch of charter schools where if you like became like, they have some level, right? That would make you like a leader in the group. You get a different shirt.
Yeah.
And you see how proudly they wear that shirt. But make sure that shirt is cool. Like the worst shirts are the ones that literally look like someone took Word or PowerPoint and just typed some text. You just printed that on the shirt. Take the time, right? Make it a little nicer because that token shirt, they will wear it till it's tattered because every time they put it on, it's a symbol of like, the team they belong to, the enterprise, but that event that occurred. And so like so we're going to print shirts that have the word COVID on, right? COVID summer outing. Like, so we can forever remember the summer outing during COVID.
Maybe we won't want to remember it, but I think it's interesting. Something creative. I think that notion of food, because you just said the flavor ices, I remember the Virgin Cola. It was like, I don't know, we didn't do the expensive kind of like Coke or Pepsi, but Virgin Cola was the big thing back like 20 years ago, but it meant a lot, right? It was so little. I think the food is an important piece, especially healthy snacks these days, so that they can eat while kind of in Zooms and not, and just take care of themselves, healthy nuts, different things like that. But the t-shirt thing, you always think t-shirts aren't gonna,
it's amazing.
but people love them, especially a good one, a really soft, a quality one.
Yeah, like, I mean, and the colors matter. Right?
Laura and Eric, you guys are both on here. You would know what's the brand that we do that's like super high quality. But anyways, we can share that.
And then there's other things you can do now where custom printing is much cheaper than it ever was. So like we will make a lot of t-shirts or sweatshirts where in military they call them call signs. It's the idea of nicknames. Yeah. Right. It's endearing to have your nickname on the back. Right. So most of my sweatshirts have CK. Right.
I have MM.
MM. Like, but someone actually.
Not this. Oh yeah, it does. Oh yeah, this one does. Yeah.
And that extra touch of monogramming, either initials or a nickname. I think someone called me a nickname Colonel because my father's a corn scientist. And
I got Beast because I can be a little
hot-headed.
I can be a little beastly.
But it stands for best end of a strong team.
Of a strong team.
Best end of a strong team.
Better end of a strong
team. Or better
team.
end of a strong team.
Better end of a strong team. Megachar. Yeah.
Megachar is one that, if you could make one that says mega and then char, when you go together, it's Megachar.
Yeah.
Right? Vera, you had a question real quick. I think from American Airlines, right?
Yes.
Do
you want to unmute? Go ahead.
Sure, unmuted. The teams that we have are, you've talked about that, where it's kind of like people who are best qualified to be in those teams. I asked the question because it's not just teams, it's life. the kinds of people I want to hang out with, have influence in my own life, are people who give a shit. And I noticed that, over the years, that those are the kinds of folks you want. So how do you select those kinds of people to be involved in your life or in your team, if you're applying it to a corporate state, from just like a litmus, and how to understand these are individuals who just give a shit from the get-go. Anyway, so that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, it's actually a great question. So one way to do it is this, on a kind of cultural level that we've done. The number one question we ask employees every week, every month, every year is the same question. Who helped you succeed this week, this month, this year? And when that becomes, in the beginning, we had little table 10 cards everywhere, just with that question. So every room you walk into, it just says, who helped you succeed? So this week, this month, this year. And the reason why that became important is this. We found that human beings we're all wired actually to help another human being. In fact, it is the very thing that I think we share this example when we spent time with AA, people who, just drank too much and could not get off that. The number one reason why they turned to alcohol was because they felt another human being did not need me. Nobody in the world needed me. And the way they get out of being dependent on alcohol is, I think it's their 13th step, which is you become a sponsor or a mentor to the newest entrant. And because they need me, I now don't have to turn to alcohol. This idea of baking that in as a ritual that shows up weekly, monthly, annually, of who helped you succeed. And what that's doing is this. The people who have the most gas for other human beings, they're noticing and doing things, but at some point they get burned out. We spent time with the researcher Adam Grant, talks about give and take, right? This notion of givers in the best way versus givers in the worst way. The people who burn out are the ones who are doing it, and then they get just taken advantage of. No one ever notices. And eventually they get cynical and says, why bother, right? No one seems to give a shit about anybody here, so care about yourself and nobody else. But when you actually put this as a question, and then you create a weekly recognition ceremony, right? Just like, when you get together for happy hour, right? In the happy hour, just ask the question, who helped you succeed this week, right? And it's amazing the little details people do notice. And if you've ever been one that's a giver, when you hear and recognize how much your team and colleagues are noticing, it will bring you to tears. The things that you have done, that you do not because you wanted something back, but you just do. When you recognize their appreciation and their noticing of it, it will literally bring you to tears. And when that is built in culturally, it brings out the best of everyone. We all start to look for little ways to help someone. And we have countless examples of crazy things if someone found a dead squirrel in the office and the person who went and got it to someone couldn't get on
Oh, in London.
it ranges, and it's crazy that people have taken the extra time to drive someone somewhere to when something was broken at home, they literally came back the next day from Home Depot with stuff to help them fix it, and then they didn't know how to do it. Once you build that, and it comes out, you almost have to watch out for the other side. They stop doing the regular jobs and think the best is to go and do only that. So we had to dial that back a little bit to remind them you have to also do your job besides just try to help everyone. Yeah. But it's actually innate in human beings. But if you make it, a directional cultural guiding force, it comes out. It's what I call the plumbing. As leaders, we have to put the plumbing in. When the plumbing is in, you'll see this good stuff will flow through.
There's also a paradox that happens with these kinds of encounters where the person who's doing the good thing gets a benefit that's an intangible kind of benefit that's unexplainable, but you recognize it nonetheless. So yes. The person doing the good thing is actually getting a benefit that the receiver is also getting a benefit, but it's a two-way street that actually will self-perpetuate itself. The question really is, how do you, picking those people out, ask them who helped them, that tells them where their heart is and their spirit. So that's all good stuff. So thank you so much.
And it's fascinating because what we found was this: the most common mistake, once again, comes from the industrial age. All recognition usually comes from the top. It's the manager who is now carefully trying to craft how to make this heartfelt speech every Friday or every month of who to thank for doing great things. It means more coming from the colleagues.
Yeah.
It's like in the movies, why they want the Oscars. The Oscars, people in film pick the best in film.
Yep.
It means more to have your colleagues pick and say what they appreciate than the boss or the manager saying. So setting up that environment in happy hour, just add that in. We call it Coronitas, right? In happy hour every Friday, right? Which we have on if you join us at 5 o'clock today, we'll have it for COA as well. This question of who helped you succeed. And it becomes muscled. You're looking for that all week long. In the same way you're looking to help someone succeed. We do it once a month and it has other benefits.
Yeah.
But the annual ceremony we do is called Avengers. We call it Avengers because superheroes first work in teams. And the job of a superhero is to help other people. It's not to, do more for self. And so we have this Avengers ceremony, and some of you may have seen it. And it's fascinating because when we did all the research and looking in the background of where the origins of human nature comes from, generally speaking, our fathers love when we achieve. So when we achieve and we graduate, get a job, get a promotion, our fathers love it. But our mothers are happiest when we are happy and healthy ourselves, but also help other people. So the act of servant leadership and helping others, generally speaking, originates from our moms. And so, and you can see the examples of imbalance, right? The mom's like, oh my God, my son's such a good kid. And the father's like, yes, but I wish he would get a job. He still lives in our basement. He's a deadbeat. Or you find the flip side, right? The father's like, wow, my son, he makes so much money and just such a powerful position. And the mom's like, yeah, but I wish he didn't work at Enron. I'm sure there are other organizations they can work at. Like this notion
We're
of
generalizing. There's a flip at times.
but there's a notion of needing both.
Yeah.
And so we have, when you walk into our office, a slogan that says, build a company that will make your mother and father proud. If you can clear that litmus test, you're doing well. So when we make the hardest decisions, we ask ourselves 5 years from now, 6 months from now, would this decision, this call, make both our mother and father proud? And that's a hard thing if you really think about it. But what we do, so in this Avenger ceremony is this: given the fact that servant leadership, the act of helping others, originates from our mothers, we have this annual ceremony and the whole company votes, and you take 3 months picking who they are. We have a committee of former winners who will literally grill and interview to make sure there's no funny play like, hey, aren't you dating that person? That's where you're recommending them. But they will go through an interview and then ask other people. And in the 3-month process, they will whittle down to the top 10. And we'll have them all stand up in the ceremony with all our employees and families we bring in usually for our summer outing. And then we will have the top 3 people of the 10, where we will fly their mothers in from anywhere in the world. And we will hide them. And then when the doors open, as they come up on stage and their mother walks out, like just came from India and they've been Facebooking at odd hours to pretend they're still in India. They had no idea they're here. And they literally walk on stage as the colleague reads what everyone said about their son or daughter.
It's like, it gives you chills. And we've been doing this.
The whole place is
We've been
tears.
doing this since 2000 and what? 10 or not?
No,
11?
maybe 10. It's been over 10 years.
It's been about 10 years now. And every time you cry just as much as you did. And some of the, if my husband's been there, he's like, I don't even know some of these people. And it's just, you're just bawling because you see the families come from China and from India or from somewhere in the United States, and they don't expect to be there. You don't expect your family to be there. And all of a sudden they just walk up and then they stand with you as all your colleagues are talking about how amazing you are and get to hear it with you. It's just like,
Yeah, it's funny.
thing.
Last year, we found out the winner's mother, Graham, was the winner from London. His mother has a phobia of flying. And so we found this out too late, so we couldn't bring her over, and there was no cruise ships that were able to get her on time. So we tried very hard with our influence to beg the Navy if there's any way we can catch a ride. They did not say yes, even though we know people there. But so we had to video them in, which is hilarious in some way.
We zoomed them
because
in.
they had their classic, while zooming, the camera fell on the floor, and 400 people are laughing as they watch the fumbling of the camera. So real. But yeah, it's like this notion of showing that care. And it's hard when, as leaders, our cup feels empty, to find a way to go there and actually go first. Because the only way you're going to get care back is someone puts it on the table. And the job of leadership that's tough is, despite the stress and anxiety, is to find ways to go there first. And if you go there and do it with a level of consistency and demonstrate your genuine nature of it, you will see a different level of effort. You will unlock a level of effort you didn't even know existed. People will do things and get things done in creative, innovative ways where you're thinking, oh my God, I didn't even know we could do this. And it's not tied to money. It's not tied to like longer hours at work. It's not tied to more headcount. That discretionary effort of a human being in today's day and age, where you can leverage technology and channels, literally 2-3 people can do the job of 1,000 people if they put it and give it their all. So
that's the discretionary effort, how to unlock that. And it's crazy if you think about the most basic thing that we have discovered around food. You know, it seems kind of, oh, what's the word? You know, it wouldn't be as important.
I always
trivial, but
I always think the best litmus test for a physical perk, do something that someone would talk about at a bar. Now, given there's no bar, just the point is, it's a bragging thing.
Yeah, something you would brag about, like
to another friend.
Like, my company sent me this or did this for me. When you brag about it,
if it passes
if you brag about it, that's an awesome perk.
Like, people rarely go and brag about the health benefits or brag about my, oh my God,
my 401k. My 401k is amazing.
But they'll brag about these tiny little things. We when we make hires, you know, look, we're a health-oriented company, like we send them this box of cookies with their, you know, offer letter. And we had a hire, like 10 years later, he was sharing his journey on NextJump.
I had no idea.
Puts a picture of that box and says he still kept that box. And he remembers that first impression of the company I took an offer with, and kept the box that the cookies came in. And so, like, that gesture, that physical gesture matters. All right.
Great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, if you want to, I'm glad you guys liked this. This was fun. We're thinking, just literally came up with this Monday. We were talking about what's missing. Glad you guys liked it. So yeah, if you want to put in feedback in the app, I know Laura has a whole piece that she'll walk you through if you've never given feedback before, but we'd love to hear it. And we won't be here next week, sadly, right? We're taking a company-wide break, our first time ever. We're shutting down.
In 26 years, we're shutting the whole company down for next 10 days.
Never happened
where our view was that even if one of us is working, it will create a chain reaction of other work. And so
we talk about thinking fast, moving fast, you know, we're going to go think slow and move really slow. That is the goal, to oscillate, like actually try to do as little as possible. Be with family, eat, whatever you need to do, but just slow it down.
Yeah, the advice to all our employees is this: think fast, move fast is obviously kind of what you need when you're in intense performance-based.
We're going to go sloth
So
mode.
the next 10 days, the guidance has been try to move as slow as possible and think as slow as possible. And that recovery and oscillation will help you come back charged up.
But we're still going to do the exercises, COA videos. We're going to do all the exercise classes. We're going to do, you're going to have a few little hits. But
go
just
slow.
Otherwise.
Go slow. Everywhere slow. Walk slow, talk slow.
Have a great 4th of July for those of you celebrating. Don't do anything stupid. I feel this is going to create a whole second wave. Just be careful.